Hello again. This is Pastor Tim coming to you from Bend and Lomita United Methodist Churches here in Central Texas. We're glad to be here in ministry. We're glad to be here with you. We've been talking about the parables because that's maybe a unique form for Jesus. He introduced that form, and some of the parables that we've already talked about, the prodigal son and the Good Samaritan have become very popular and well known. So we're going to talk about another parable today, the parable of the sheep and the goats. This is a story that the Son of Man returns. The Son of Man is a human figure that represents God, has a direct relationship and a ruling relationship with God over creation. And so that gathers all the nations in this parable and divides the sheep from the goats. Now, what I understand, I don't know a lot about sheep and goats. I've been around them some in my churches, but haven't had to raise them. So I have to depend on other people to tell me that sheep and goats in the first century were brought together in the pasture. And when they brought back into the pens, they had to be divided into sheep and the goats because they had different needs for the night before they went back in the pasture the next day. So they had to divide the sheep and the goats, which generally sheep and goats are pretty different looking. But in the ancient world, most of the sheep were light colored and most of the goats were dark colored. So it made it even easier, even at twilight, to see the difference in how to divide them. But obviously, Jesus didn't come to give us an agricultural lesson, a tutorial. He gave us a lesson about heaven, about what God is like. And he divides the sheep and the goats. And to the sheep, he says, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was sick, you visited me. When I was imprisoned, you came to me. That was something that surprised those who were on the right-hand side, the ones who were divided into the side of the sheep, and which he would as a shepherd, as a tradition of the shepherd, in that kingship of David, would refer to them as sheep. They were surprised because they didn't remember seeing Jesus. They didn't remember seeing anybody different than the people that they were caring for. But that out of their own nature, out of their own generosity, out of the love that they had received and they returned to people, they acted as helpers, as carers, as people who gave. It came naturally to them, and they were surprised when they got any kind of recognition for it. And he turns to the goats and says, when I was hungry, you didn't give me food. When I was thirsty, you didn't give me water. When I was a stranger, you didn't welcome me. When I was sick, you didn't take care of me. When I was a prisoner, you did not visit me. And they said, well, when did we see you like that? If we had known that it was an important person, if it was known it was the king, we would have done something different. You see, what they saw were people who didn't deserve to get help, people that were excluded, people that were not loved by humanity and not valued by society. And they didn't want to waste their energy, their resources, their time on those folks, so they just naturally didn't care. They cared about people who would benefit them, people that were higher in the societal ranks, and so they missed out on knowing what God wanted. This is the Christmas season when Jesus comes to be born again. He comes as one who needed to be helped, as a vulnerable baby who needed someone to change his diaper, who needed somebody to feed him, to take care of him when he was sick. He couldn't do it himself, and he turns around and then cares for people who can't care for themselves, the sick and the blind, the maimed, even those who had passed away. He cared about those people. He cared about the outcasts, the ones who were not looked upon by society. He cared about the least of them, and that's the story of this the sheep and the goats. The king comes down with all the power and authority, and he cares most about the people who other people care the least for, the least, the last, and the lost. Most of the time, this parable is pretty straightforward, but when we put it in context of other scriptures, then it becomes more complex. Paul says that you're saved by grace, that it's not your works, and that seems contrary to this. But it's a both and. You're saved by grace, by God's grace. You can't do anything to earn it. But out of the love that we have received, we need to love other people, to celebrate the king by celebrating the king's children, the king's brothers and sisters. Those are the ones that the king cares most about, and that becomes the basis for judgment. So Jesus comes to be a helper, and he advocates other people being helpers. And so that he's the one who gives us the love of God so that we're enabled to be helpers. Now, the story is told because there's a chance for the goats to become sheep. That in nature is impossible, but it's human beings that can. We come from all sorts of different backgrounds and circumstances, races and nations, languages and religions. But it's possible to be in tune with God, to be in tune with God's plan for the world by being helpers, by being the ones who reach out to other people. And so that's what Jesus is encouraging his followers to do, and he's encouraging all the world to do, to realize the difference between those who help and those who do not. So that's all for this time. I'll see you next time.